Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy Good Friday. Is that okay to say? Happy Good Friday?
Happy Friday.
Well, I guess in a lot of ways, in the ultimate sense, we could say Happy Good Friday because it leads to a very happy moment, which happens 3 days after Good Friday. But Friday or Good Friday itself being the day that we look at the possibility that death could conquer the holy, perfect extension of the love and the loveliness of God. We look at the crucifixion. And in that sense, I don't think we could say Happy Good Friday because Good Friday is the symbol of complete failure. Something happened that dashed the hopes. It was so completely different than what they expected. It dashed the hopes of everyone at that time. All of those who believed that they were with the Messiah. And up until that moment, Jesus had done everything that was expected of him. It was like almost like he had a checklist, and he went through that checklist. Okay, the Messiah, according to the prophets, is supposed to do this, and then he's supposed to say that, and then something else. And until that moment, he went straight down that checklist and did them all. But then he threw away that checklist and he did something no one expected. He died like a common criminal. He was tortured on a cross. So, in that sense, we can't say Happy Good Friday, but we know what happens next. They didn't know what happened next, but we do. We know that all things are conspiring to our awakening, including what appears to be failure or death. Now, before I get further, I want to ask a question. I'm pretty sure that most of you have never heard of the person I'm going to mention. The person is Flavia Julia Helena. Kosho might know, but Kosho, do you know who that is? Or also known as Saint Helena. But so to just give you a little bit of a reference, Flavia Julia Helena was not born a noblewoman, though she certainly became one. She was born in Greece and was probably just from a middle class family, but she ended up marrying an emperor of Rome and ultimately became the mother of Constantine the Great, one of the great Roman emperors of that time. We most of us know Constantine as being the Roman emperor who made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. But most of us, or at least many of us, don't realize the significance of Helena herself. So let me tell you a little bit about her and what she did. So Helena, she was the real devoted one. Constantine only officially became a Christian on his deathbed. But he was simply a great politician. He saw the changing times, and he was the one who determined that Christianity would be the official religion of the Roman Empire. But Helena, she was a true believer. And so what Helena did was in 326, she, along with probably a battalion of Roman soldiers, went to the Holy Land, not to conquer, but to discover, if they could, the places where these holy events took place, the place of the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem, most particularly the place of crucifixion and the place of resurrection. And so they did everything they could. It was a great mystery, uncovering all the clues, trying to find out. Of course, this was 300 and some odd years later, so this was a very long time after Jesus was there. But they were finally able to identify a place that they believed to have been Golgotha, the place of crucifixion. And digging underneath a pagan temple there, they found 3 Roman crucifixion crosses, believed to have been placed there after the crucifixion of Jesus and the 2 thieves on each side. And they found these, and yet they didn't. I'll tell you what the legend is. We don't know if this is true or not, but the legend is that they wanted to know if one of them truly was the cross that Jesus was crucified, or what they would call the true cross. So they put a section of each of these crosses into the bed of a dying man or a very ill man. And when they put the 3rd cross into his bed, he was healed. And so this is how they determined that this was the cross of Jesus. And what they did with that is they split it up into 3 different sections. One section went back to Rome. Another section went to Constantinople, which was the head of the Eastern Church. And the 3rd section was broken up into tiny splinters and put into what are called reliquaries. A reliquary is something that holds a relic. A relic could be a piece of cloth from a saint or a significant object like one of these splinters, a splinter from the cross. So they took a 3rd of the cross, broke it up into splinters, and then put them into reliquaries and distributed them throughout Europe to many of the churches. And many of these relics, many of these pieces of the true cross remain. And this is one of them. This is actually a relic. And in the very, very center of this cross, if any of you here would like to come and see it later, but let me see if I can put it up to the camera for now. In the very, very center, you'll see that white cross. And in the very center of that white cross, you see those 2 splinters? Those are believed to be splinters from the true cross, or the cross of Jesus. Now, there's no way to know if that's true or not. We know that, at least in this case, for hundreds of years, this has been believed to be splinters from the cross of Jesus. But there's also a saying, which is, if you took all the splinters from all the relics in the world and put them together, you'd have 3 crosses. In other words, there are a lot of fakes. Fake relics back in medieval times was an industry. So there's no way for us to know whether this reliquary that I'm holding actually does hold relics from the true cross. And my question is, does it really matter? Let's say that this is not authentic, that these little 2 splinters are not actually from the cross of Jesus. Does it interrupt the lesson at all? Does having an object that we can at least focus on help us to understand the true meaning of this cross, or even the true meaning of the crucifixion? So the question is, what is the true meaning? Well, I believe that the way for us to look at the cross is as the vertical and the horizontal journey. We, in our lives, our personal endeavors, our day-to-day living, we are on this horizontal plane. We move from day to day, moment to moment, plodding along, doing what we're doing, meeting the people we meet, having the experiences we experience. And we are all moving along this horizontal line toward what? Death. Yeah. There comes a point on this horizontal line where we come to a kind of cliff. And then we go over that cliff. That's on the horizontal plane. It seems to be the end, the death. However, and this is what I think the true meaning of the cross is, and this is what Jesus certainly taught us, that there is not only on the cross a horizontal line, but a vertical line. And what that vertical line means is that at any moment that you choose, any moment that you can welcome the experience of wholeness, of transformation, at any moment you can dive deep into that horizontal or that vertical experience of awakening, and that horizontal plane no longer holds you. It no longer holds you in its grip. Just as 3,000 years ago, that illusion of death could not hold the Christ, could not hold Jesus in his grip, because even in his death, and he did truly die. A lot of people have theories, well, he didn't really die, he faked his death, and then he went off. He and Mary Magdalene took off a couple of days later and headed to France. To me, that is so ridiculous. The main reason it's ridiculous is because the people who were with Jesus, his disciples, they went from being the most frightened, scared, timid people in that whole region, probably, in all of Jerusalem, hiding, afraid that they might be caught, afraid that they might be associated with Jesus, when moments before he was the man. Moments before they were convinced this was the Messiah. Now, after seeing all of their hopes dashed, after Jesus did what no one expected him to do, die on a cross, the most horrific and really embarrassing way that anyone could die in that time. To have this messianic character die in such a terrible way forced them into the shadows, where they were the most frightened people in all of Judea. But only days later, these frightened people became the most enlivened, the bravest, the most life-filled people perhaps in history, to the point that almost all of them were martyred. In terms of the 12 apostles, the only one that was not martyred was John. So they were so filled with light and excitement, going from that experience of being so frightened and afraid because they saw something they never expected, to realizing that death could not hold the perfect child of God. The resurrection, they suddenly became the most enlivened people in the world, sharing the gospel everywhere they went. I don't think that happened because Jesus and Mary Magdalene took off and went to France. Something else happened. Of course, we know that was the resurrection, but it begins today on Good Friday, when Jesus, instead of going horizontally, went vertically and dove into the experience that we talk about here every day. He dove into the experience of what it means to be awake, what it means to be truly alive. And in doing so, could not be held by death. So once again, the choice for us is, are we going to choose to go on that horizontal line until we finally, ultimately, inevitably come to that cliff? Or are we going to say right now, this is the opportunity that we have to go vertical, to align as Jesus aligned, and as every great saint and mystic and sage has aligned with the experience of what is true, the experience of what it means to be awake. We talk about this every day. It's not an intellectual idea. It's not something that you can think. It's not even something you can do, but it's something you can choose. So choose again. Let's choose that vertical plane as Jesus did, and see what happens to us 3 days from now. So, that being said, Victoria, I'm going to turn it over to you.
James.
Good morning.
Morning. Blessed Good Friday to you, James, and everybody else. Good morning. Well, I think, and I won't say I think, in my heart, I know that we're given the time now to live vertically, and we've been given each other's hand to hold to stabilize in that. And living vertically isn't as traumatic as it might have been in Jesus's time, where we're facing all kinds of crucifixions and horrors. The only thing that we seem to let go of are the idols that we have that we think will please us outside of ourselves. And when we've done the looking at that and the willingness to stay very present and enjoy the comfort and the care of living in our divinity in a wholeness, not alone, in the company of this, maybe, the communion of saints, or being in that field of love where nothing is alone, everything is part of, and being present to it by simply being present to one another. Teddy and I were just talking about this. So when you're not thinking, you're just being grateful and you're blessing and you're enjoying. And and the the thought of love, or God is love, is always within your breath, because it's so clear that in my ego or thinking bodily mind, I could never figure it out. In Arabic, my father used to say, this is an Arabic phrase, "Kinnu makan," means now you see it, now you don't. And it's like the lessons we've just been doing in the course. Miracles are seen in light. And when you see each other in light, that's the miracle. And miracle and vision go together. And it's just a focus. When we're not all bothered by our ideas of what we think we want or what we lost or where we're going or any of that, and simply childlike, except you be like a little child and depend on God completely, completely, completely right now, then you see that there's nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. And you see nothing happens. When Claire died, I experienced, not just in an idea, nothing happened. Nothing happened. It's just a change in venue for the moment of how to communicate. It's like changing up your instruments, going from a guitar to a ukulele. It's just a change in the expression or the vehicle you use. And we are given each other now. And that's the fire of right now, of our love for one another and appreciation for one another, for living vertically, living in the presence of our divinity and each other's divinity, and seeing it. And when we lose focus, it's okay. What's Karen's song? Oops, I projected again. It's okay. Just shift your focus back. Kindle McCann. Now you see it, now you don't. See the light. It's just a little focus away. We see it in each other's eyes. We see it in each other's energy field. We see it in the flowers. Living vertically is living in our divinity, Christ consciousness. And it is what living in the resurrection is. We don't have to die to get resurrected. Maybe that's part of what we do greater than Jesus did. We are given to live now in our bodies, but not of our bodies, in time, but not of time, in a resurrected state that recognizes that we are the light and sees only that in everyone, and is not fooled by disastrous appearances. Oh, don't worry about him, it'll be fine. And as we focus on the light, we draw that out so that all the other things just seem to fade away. And it can be that simple if we let it. And if it isn't, it's because we have chosen for something to be an idol instead of the present moment. That's all. So I want to celebrate that we are living in the resurrection as a family of God, there's no one would have called into this Zoom today who didn't already know that deeply within their heart. And they look to each other and to us, and we look to one another to confirm that and to celebrate that together. So I love you, Jimmy. Thank you. Here's Teddy.
Thank you, Vicky.
Well, I'm going to say two things that are exactly opposite of each other and paradoxical. So in Helen's,
Oh,
the horizontal versus the vertical. And what he says is the horizontal plane is where miracles take place, because miracles replace the idea of death. Miracles unite men as being one in Christ. And so instead of living in a horizontal plane where we die, the miracles unite us as one. The vertical plane is miracles make man one with God. And that's what we're doing. We're uniting and joining with our brothers miraculously, seeing that death isn't real. And in that, there's another thing that's offered to us, and that is the resurrection. And that is, the ascension in that sense. And that makes us one in God. And the other thing I'm going to say is this: it being Good Friday, in the tradition I was given as a kid from way back, from 12 to 3, we're silent. So I'm not saying anything anymore right now.
Oh.
yes, thank you. Thanks to both of you. Thanks to all of you for being willing to take this vertical journey, to dive deep into this holy experience, and to realize that that horizontal journey ultimately will never give us what we really want. I think this is one of the most important lessons for us to learn. As it would say in A Course in Miracles, the world I see holds nothing that I want. But beyond this world, there is a world that I want. And that's the vertical journey into wholeness. I dive deep or I rise, and it's the same thing. Diving deep into the experience and rising into the experience is the same thing. Because all we're really doing is making a choice. We're saying, just as Jesus said, death cannot hold the holy, perfect child of God. That I can choose only life, even when it seems that death has conquered life. That's what Good Friday is all about, the assertion that death has conquered life. That's what this relic is all about. But we know and we have the confidence that there is something else that's on the way, that still, even within that supposed death, there was a light that was shining. Before the session really started, I was playing the song that I recorded. Your light is shining, your light is shining, your light is shining in me. The light of God is shining in me now. Your light is shining in me. And I think this is what the journey into resurrection is. Even in the illusion of death, that light is still shining, just as it was in Jesus when he lay in the tomb. When we make that choice to breathe oxygen onto that light, onto that flame that's within each one of us, it comes alive. We come alive. We rise. We have our own resurrection. In A Course in Miracles, it says the resurrection is the single desire of the Son for the Father. When you have that single desire, I want only one thing, to rise in this experience, that's when the resurrection really happens. That's when Easter is here, not just as an idea, but as an experience. So, as Teddy said, this is not a time for us just to be talking, but a time for us to be feeling. So, here's what we're going to do. Let's just take a few breaths together. And in a few moments, we're all just going to be quiet and just allow. Allow the choice to be made. The choice of that vertical dive or rise into life, beyond death completely. And today we make a choice, a resolute choice, realizing that there's nothing in this world that we really want, nothing that will satisfy us, nothing that will ever scratch that itch that we feel, that longs but for God, that longs but for love. We let that light overwhelm us, just as it overwhelmed Jesus as he lay in the tomb. We make that same choice now. Good Friday is the symbol of death, and resurrection is the symbol of life. And so today we choose life. We resolutely choose to dive or to rise on that vertical plane. There's nothing else for us. And we say together, it is so. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to close this session now in silence. And I'm just going to encourage you to maybe spend as much time today in quiet as you can. Even spend the rest of the day in silence if you choose to. And most of all, to see if you can sense that vertical plane calling to you, calling you home. See if you can feel that experience as it lifts you above this world into the miracle of life. So I'll say to all of you, namaste, and I hope to see you all on Sunday. Goodbye.